Gimel Amud Aleph. So we just gave Rav Nachman Yitzchak gave an alternative to Rav's pshat that has nothing to do with the heichal in terms of these 20 amas. Just has to do with the recognition factor and sort of just a simona ba'alma. The mentioning in the brisa of the heichal was just a siman. It really has nothing to do with the basis of the 20 amas. Okay, so let's proceed from there. About a third of the way down the page, a little bit below, halfway down the middle, the narrow lines. According to Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Hanicha ilo svirle hadarabba. It would be very understandable why there needs to be a second machlokus here, but the height of the mavli, if he does not hold of Rabbah. We'll see about Rabbah in a minute. But if he holds of Rabbah, then the question is going to come up. The question is going to be the need for the same machlokas to be mentioned twice in two different mishnayos. But if you hold of Rabbah's pshat in the reasoning for sukkah, taking us back to our sukkah days a little bit, Rabbi said, "Ksiv l'man yedider sechem ki b'sukkos hashafti as b'nei Yisrael." Right, so he says, I want you to know, you have to sit in the sukkah for 7 days, that your generation should know that I sat you, in the sukkahs. It doesn't mean literally, it doesn't mean with that ani cover, but that's basically l'man yedid. But the key point of that drasha, of that pasuk, is l'man yedid derasechem. Ades from amma adam yedei shadar b'sukkah. So if you have to know you're in a sukkah, what defines a sukkah? We know schach defines a sukkah. So up until 20 amas, you know you're in the sukkah because you can see the schach. And that's the Rabbi's explanation of why there's a shear of 20 amas for the height of the schach. So ad eshem amma adam yodea shadar b'sukkah kama. L'mayel eshem amma ein adam yodea. A person does not know that they're in a sukkah. You can lose, recognition and sight of the fact that you're in a sukkah. Mishum lo sholta be'ena, because your eyes don't see the schach. So that clearly, according to Rabbah, seems to be the exact same logic that is going on here in the Mavli. It's an issue of heker, of will people know that there is a message up there on that in that Mavli with that Korah that, hey, this is not Rishus Harabim, just that flashing signal that tells you don't make a mistake between Rishus Harabim and between a Mavli. Alma gabi sukinami bekeira pligi. Okay, so clearly the indication is based on Rabbah, because if you remember back in Sukkah, there are two other pshatim there, don't have to do with recognition. Rabbah was one of the three pshatim that was brought, but wasn't universal. So if Rav Nachman Yitzchak holds of Rabbah and plays into his rationale, then if why do I need two different machlokas of the exact same nature? They have the same issues at play. Clearly, I can learn out one from the other. To which Gemara says, no, not so simple. Tzricha. You need both situations to teach you that in both cases, both of these parties, both the Chacham and Rabbi Yehuda, say what they say. Why? They only had the machlokes by sukkah between Rabbi Yehuda, who says it's fine above 20, and the Chacham who say no, the Tanna Kamma who says it's not fine. I would say no. Only by sukkah is there a machlokas. Only here does Rabbi Yehuda say what he says, that the sukkah is valid above 20. Even the yeshiva avda, since it's made for sitting, right? We don't stand generally in sukkahs. You generally sit in a sukkah. Leishiva sukkah. Even the yeshiva avida shalta be'ena. If you're sitting, it's much easier to recognize. You're sitting there and you're looking up in the. That's what you notice. You notice that you're in the schach. And he holds it, even if it's above 20, you're still going to notice. Your eyes are still going to go up and see that you're in a sukkah. Ava mavi, but mavi, which has no chairs, generally speaking, in that mavi, the lichuch of it, it's a busy alleyway where people are coming and going. So you're on your way. I would never be able to extrapolate Rabbi Yehuda's position from the sukkah to the mavi. I would say he admits to the Rabbanon. And once you have this, you can really, the reverse is obviously true as well. V'yashpin and Baha, they only had the case of the Mavli, Ba'akam Rabbanim. Maybe the Rabbanim say it's not valid only in a place where you are walking. where there is no sitting. Maybe when it comes to sukkah, maybe the Rabbanan would indeed admit to Rabbi Yehuda that a sukkah is fine above 20 because you're sitting, and if you're sitting, your eyes are probably going to go up. So tzricha. Since I need both cases to tell me how far the Rabbanan go on one level and how far Rabbi Yehuda goes on the other level. Okay. That takes care of that issue. Let's catch up in the Rashis here. Israelite. So below the middle of the page in Rashis, Israelite hadarabba the tamai darbanan b'sukkah mishum heker. If Rav Nachman Yitzchak holds of Rabbah, whose reasoning of sukkah is also because of heker, lamul rabbanan Rabbi Yehuda liflog b'tarti. Why do Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda have to argue on both situations? And the answer is mavud delhilo chavid, mavud which is made for walking. Claimer hamahalech eina mabit l'mayla. When you're walking, you're not really looking up. You're generally looking straight ahead, or maybe looking down, but you're not looking. Generally, you're not looking up. That's not a very good formula for not tripping. Okay, so that's the only Rashi, and therefore I would never be able to learn. And that's one from the other. You need a machlokas in both cases.
So the maximum height of a korach and I guess of a sukkah were all not based on any pasuk or any Moshe Sinai. It's based on the rabbis go, well, you can look that high and see the schach, or you can look that high and see the.
Well, right. Well, that's well. 75% of what
there'd be a massive study.
75% of what you said is correct. I mean, first of all, it's Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak as opposed to Rav. Rav had some problems, so Rav has said as machlokas hanon. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak holds that way, but he only holds that way by a mavui. That he's on record. When it comes to sukkah, it's only if you hold like Rabbah, because if we went back to sukkah and learned the beginning of Gemara sukkah, we'd see that there are other opinions as to why a 20 amma sukkah is above 20 is not valid, right? So, basically, what we're saying now, if Rav Nachman Yitzchak bought into Rabbah, then yes, it would be nice and clean. That the issue is only about height in terms of sight, in terms of being able to recognize it, and
this what they felt was the right height.
Correct. At least the Rabbanan did. The Rabbi Yehuda says you can go higher. The Rabbi Yehuda says it's all fine. Okay. Now it's interesting because according to Rabbi Yehuda, we don't really have, I guess we have that Bar Kapara said up to 100, which might have been a guzma. We had the other opinion that says 40 or 50. So certainly it seems up to 50 for sure. You could go. Okay, I'm not sure what difference would Bar Kapara, did he mean 100 or did he mean?
So they also talk about 40 because if you make it out of substantial walls and
yeah, so right. So that's a little, maybe we'll get to it somewhere, I'm not sure, but Rabbi Yehuda has not been clearly defined at this point. As to, does he have a maximum, or by him, sky's the limit? Okay.
It's just something there's no pasuk or no.
Right. We dropped it. I mean, Rav is Rav, and he does say it's based on the Pesach Ol Moed, but Rav had some issues. I mean, the one thing that Rav Nachman Yitzchak had over Rav is that according to Rav was a machlokas tanoim, and according to Rav Nachman Yitzchak it wasn't a machlokas tanoim. So that put Rav Nachman Yitzchak in a little bit of a better position. Okay, but at the end of the day, Rav still held what he held. Okay, so back to the Gemara, last narrow line on the page. My amaltera. So we had this kind of, prominence or these protrusions, and we spoke about the oak tree, whatever. So, but what is in general? What does the word amaltera mean? What's that referring to? We know it has to do with something that's going to catch your eye. So, Chama Brei the Rabbi Avrohom Amar Kine. So it had some kind of nest, some kind of structural, design that in the shape of nests, bird nests. When Rav Dimi came, Amar Rava Piske de Arza. These were poles of cedar wood, okay, that somehow were maybe protruding, continuing beyond the beam, that I guess caught your eye, that helped you see that the kura was there above 20. This, we mentioned this as referring to the ulam. When you walked into the ulam, they had these amalteras there. Okay, so mandama piske da'arza. If you hold it's a piske da'arza, means it's a nest, and that was what the ulam was made with. Koshken kine. Okay, I'm sorry. Piskei Da'arz means there's a cedar poles. I'm sorry. If you learn cedar poles, if cedar poles are good enough to catch your eye, because right, what the statement was that if it has an amalter, then even if it's above 20, then even above 20 would work because it's something special. It stands out. So if you learn that it's cedar poles, which are more innocuous than these nests, so kolshkein kine, certainly nests would catch your eye. To have these, fancy structural nests that are coming out of the walls there, that for sure would catch your eye. But if you learn kine of Piskei Da'arz aloi, but maybe Piskei Da'arz wouldn't have that quality to it. Okay, so let's just again Rashi here. So that's just a side point about the amalteros. Piske kine, but three quarters of the way down, going kine eifes, like bird the nests of birds. Hoyuboltim mitachas ulam, they were protruding beneath the antechamber. Lamaila min pesach, above the opening. Okay, so there they were. They, I guess, for the sake of beauty, they had this artistic designs there. So that really caught your eye. Another Mandiyama says, no, it's Piskei Da'arz, Klein Seishel Erez, poles or beams, poles, sticks of cedar wood, Aruchin, long, Tchuvim Bekaisel, they were stuck into the wall, Va'aidi Denafish Mishrei, and since they were very long, Eirech Dedu, Chazilu, so the length of these poles that were, I guess, going from the beam, the cross beam into the ulam, it seemed like it went in as opposed to coming out. That's not so clear, but it seemed like it extended, continuing inside. Chaziluhu inshay, people see it, vikekera, and there's a recognition. The same idea, basically, anything that's going to catch your eye is really basically good enough. Okay, so now do they agree? So the Gemara says no, they don't really agree because mandiyam piskei ikka keir lamavi. If the one who says that these poles, these cedar poles have a heker, kolshke, and kanes for sure will hold that nests would do the job. The idea of chashivi, since they're very chashuv, they have artistic quality about them. The umilsa de tmi here, and it's a wondrous thing to see nests coming out of walls. Mistakle bu'in sheva chazil kura. They're going to look at it and they're going to see the beam. They're going to recognize the beam, and obviously now we're talking about a mavi now. So in other words, if you do this, just like you had it by the ulam, which is unique. If you had it by a regular mavi, people would notice it as well, and will catch sight of the beam, and you'll accomplish your goal of having them be aware of the fact that there's a cross beam. So if you have a nest, so if poles work, nests for sure work. But if you hold that it's nests, then maybe poles don't really do it, and maybe poles are just too innocuous to catch your eyesight and to catch your fancy. Okay, back to the Gemara. Uman Omar, third wide line. Uman Omar Piskei Da'arz, my timer. If you learn that these poles were good enough, these long cedar poles were good enough to catch your eye and to validate a mavi above 20, my timer. What's the reason? Mishum nofish mishchei, because they extend a very long way. I have a sukkah nofish mishchei. But so if that's the case, if anything that extends from the place of your entranceway, that's why I think it's inside. It goes in, right? If the length is very long and therefore it catches your eye because of the extension of that entranceway, well, then why would a sukkah not be good? A sukkah has by definition an extension of the entranceway when the schach keeps going. So if the schach keeps going, what does it keep going to? It goes to the top. To the to the wall that you're entering. So why wouldn't anything? If anything that's long catches your eye, why would a sukkah not be valid? So and you see the Rabbanan say it doesn't work, right? That's exactly what the Rabbanan argue. They argue by a sukkah where there is schach, and yet they say it's not valid above 20. So I know this Piskei Da'arz seems to be difficult. If that's the pshat, then why wouldn't it work by sukkah? So the Gemara says, no, it's not about the length. So drop that whole understanding about the whole length thing. That doesn't do it. Ella kivan the kachoshev isay kala. What makes it fancy, what makes it prominent, is the fact that it has these long poles sticking out. People are aware of it. It's like it becomes almost like I don't know, as a street, like a marker on a street, like a special fancy sign that everyone is aware of. I wouldn't put it into the arches of the St. Louis. I wouldn't put it into that category, but it's got something that people, everyone like knows about, that entranceway, and it becomes like well known, and it catches your fancy because of the fact that you're aware of it. People talk about it, so it has a code. But a sukkah, everyone has a schach on their sukkah. That's not unique. It's not going to capture your imagination, and there's no reason why you're going to be looking at it if it's above 20. Okay, so let's see Rashi. Actually, no Rashis. Okay, so let's proceed. No Rashis. So that's the difference. It's not about the length. It's about the coal. That I guess these poles were still, even though they maybe weren't as artistically, fancy as the nests were, but they were still something that I guess made people talk. It had a coal. It had people talking about, when you go there, you got to see those things sticking out, those poles coming out of the walls. It's a big deal. So that was the difference. Okay. So let's go a little bit why not learn a little bit of Sukkah in Eruvin, just to change things up. So Mixas Kura B'toch Esrim. So we're going to sort of interchange Eruvin and Sukkah here, and let's see what we can find. So Mixas Kura B'toch Esrim, Mixas Kura L'mayl Mi Esrim, Mixas Chach B'toch Esrim, Mixas Chach L'mayl Mi Esrim. So you've got, so again, right, there's a parallel between Eruvin and Sukkah in what regard? We don't need a beam when it comes to sukkahs, but we need schach when it comes to sukkah. So you've got a parallel between the beam that's crossing the alleyway and the schach that's in your sukkah. So they both have to be above 20. They both have to be below 20. They can't be above 20. So we'll see what that means too. But let's say in this case you had some of the layer of the beam below 20 and some of the layer above 20. Some of the beam above 20. So it was 19 19 feet in the in the 9/10 of an amma high, and then the beam went from there above. Or the schach, same way. The schach is thick. So the thickness, let's say, takes up 4 inches. So you had 2 inches of the schach below 20 and 2 inches of the schach above 20. So is that valid? Do you have to have the complete entity beneath the 20, okay, or not? So Amar Rabba b'mavui kasher b'sukkah pasel. So Rabba splits the difference, and he says that they're not universal. It's not the same across the board. Rabba says by mavi it's kasher, by sukkah it's pasel. Ma'ishna b'mavi the kasher the amrin kolosh. Okay, why by mavi is it kasher? Because of the concept, obviously, the concept of ignore the top, just focus on the bottom. You got the bottom layer, so remove the thin it out, remove the top layer, and focus on the bottom layer. What you have should be good enough just by of what's below. So you don't need the top. Ignore it. If you're going to ignore the top when it comes to a mavui, sukkah nami leima kolosh. Say the same thing by sukkah. Ignore the top. You got the bottom. The schach is comes underneath 20 a little bit, and that should be good enough to validate your sukkah. Well, more answers not so fast, buddy boy. You need all the schach to create more sunlight, more shade than sunlight. Right? You need all of the schach. So if you would say kolosh and you ignore the top, what's going to invariably happen is you will not have enough schach to validate the sukkah. Well, if that's your comeback because you can't ignore the top when it comes to sukkah, hachanami, you can't ignore the top when it comes to a mavi either. Kolashta, if you're going to remove the top layer and ignore it, make believe it's not there and thin it out, theoretically thin it out, Havlei Korah, and it tells Baruch. That's going to thin this beam out invariably and make it so light and so flimsy that it's going to be moved in the wind. The wind's going to come and shake it up and knock it out. And that's not acceptable, right? We need a beam that's strong enough to withhold the weight of a half brick. And that half brick normally requires an entire beam. If you're going to remove half the beam, it's going to render the beam invalid based on its flimsiness. El al karchach. But right, what do you say in order to defend the halacha by the korah, by the mavui, nasa kishvudim shel mateches? The answer is that no. It's once I'm dealing in the theoretical world, I view the bottom because it is sturdy. At the end of the day, it is sturdy. So it's just sturdy with the help of stuff above the shear. So the sturdy, I'm able to look at that bottom as if they were metal rods, that they are sturdy. So sort of you use your imagination and you consider them metal rods. Well, hachanami, if you're gonna be able to use your imagination and look at the bottom as kishvudin shel mateches, hachanami al karcha nasa silsur mechamsa. So here too, why not allow the schach above? Because after all, it is kosher schach. It's not like it's puzzle. It's valid stuff. It's just too high. But once it's mixed, so if you have this ability to imagine, why don't you imagine that the entire sukkah, which it really is, it is tzilsum mechamsa. Right, you are not sitting in sunlight; you're sitting in shade. So, but you're using the top. So, just imagine that the entire sukkah is tzilsum b'chamsa from the bottom, based on the fact that it is. And again, it is kosher schach. So, bottom line is, I don't see the difference. In other words, at this point, it's one or the other. If you're going to play mind games, you can play mind games by both. If you want to do a straight letter of the law, then you got to do letter of the law by both. So I don't see the difference between sukkah and mavli, and yet you made a difference. You said sukkah is not good and mavli is good. So Amar mi prazika sukkah del yachid hu sukkah is, which is meant for the yachid loy midker. Okay, it's not recognizable. One guy sitting in a sukkah could easily lose sight of the fact of what's going on, and therefore not, recognize what's going on, and therefore, let's say if the bottom fell out, then he's not going to recognize that there's a problem. In other words, you're definitely more in danger, because if the bottom part fell away, then you're really stuck, and then you have an entire sukkah lacking valid schach, and therefore, and it could be that you're not going to recognize that. So the sukkah del yochri.
You're saying that the rest of the schach is above 20 amos then.
Right. That's the case. Part above and part below.
So you're going to lose the below part.
Right, and the yachid won't recognize it. So mavu del rabim, but mavu which has hundreds of people every day walking by, is always going to be some, frumak who's always going to be measuring things and making sure it's all kosher, right? Mitkri adadi. They're going to, one guy's going to remind the other guy, hey, something fell, we got a problem. Somebody's going to be there to recognize it. Okay, so that's one pshat of what the difference is. Ravina has a slightly different pshat, similar. Ravina sukkah deraisa achmar rabbanan. So sukkah, which is deraisa, we don't want to play the game. Let's say there's an equal amount of people that might recognize or not recognize, but by sukkah, where the stakes are much higher. The stakes are dealing with the deraisa issue of being in a sukkah. We're going to be machmir to not run that risk. Mavi rabbanan, mavi, where even if that thing falls and they'll recognize it, in the absolute worst case scenario, you're being even Isa Rabbanan of carrying rabbinically. Rabbanan were not that machmir. Okay, so that's one version, that way it went down in the Gemara. Ravada bar Masna, Masal Shmaitzad Rabba Ibcha. Ravada bar Masna learned this sugya differently. Okay, so we just learned one version of what the question was, what the answer was, and now we're going to learn a different version. He learned it fakert in the exact opposite way. Rabba answered a split of the two cases, but in the other direction. By sukkah it's valid, by mavi it's invalid. The exact opposite of what we just said before. So same, but it's going to go through the same process. Maisha sukkah the ksher. Why is the sukkah valid? The amrin and kolosh. Because we say thin it out, and you have schach beneath. So movinami leima kloish. You can say thin it out by a movi too, and say you have stuff beneath. Well, the trouble is by a movi, if you thin it out, have a koran, it tells barach. It's going to be very shvach. It's going to be blowing in the wind, and it's going to be very loose. Well, hachanami klash of leichamson b'tzilzol. Well, if you thin it out, you're not going to have enough shade. So again, I don't see the difference. But rather you say, hey, at the end of the day, you do have a sukkah full of shade, so I'm able to sort of nullify the top through the bottom and just forget the fact that it's on top. So here too, it is strong. So if it's strong, view the bottom as being strong, and it's like a bunch of metal rods, and it's all good. So I don't see the difference. Same structure. Amarov Prazika, and sure enough, Rav Prazika comes along and says, you want to know the difference? Sukkah del Yachid, a sukkah which only has one guy there. Very often you're sitting in a sukkah by yourself. Rabbi Anavshe, Umitkri. So if I care, the very same factor becomes the opposite factor. If you're by yourself, you're going to focus and you're going to think. You're not in a hurry, and you're going to sit there and meditate. And you're going to know, oh my gosh, look at my sukkah. it's missing schach below 20. Mavu del rabim hui samchadadi. But mavu, every guy's thinking the other guy's going to do it, right? You don't think it's not your problem because somebody else is checking the eruv. So the eruv, could fall, and yet 100 people needing it, and no one recognizes it. Okay, mavu del rabim hui samchadadi. They're going to rely on each other. V'loy mitkari. The Amr Inshi, because there's a very famous expression, if you have two guys watching a pot, the cholent's going to be shvach. It ain't going to be, it's not going to be too hot, it's not going to get hot enough, it's not going to get cold enough if you need something that's cold, and basically everything's going to be lukewarm and shvach hamaisis. So nothing like a lukewarm cholent and iced tea that doesn't have any ice in it. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. So partners are not good. When you have too many people watching the pot, it ain't going to work, and that's the idea. Okay, let's catch up on the Rashi's here. Mixas oviakura, about 10 lines up from the bottom. Mixas oviakura b'tochav. Part of the thickness of the beam was within 20 mixas l'mayl michav. V'chin oivei schach shel sukkah. The same thing is with the schach. Koloish royin kilo nitel osa avi. We look as if that thickness was gone. Hayotzilma that goes above the line of demarcation. We take karadaka, and it's a thin. So use a thin wall. It's not a thick, big deal. So remove the thickness when you saw the thin part that's beneath 20. Well, and he tells Baruch, the trouble is going to be blowing in the wind. Shrei Shira Chachamim Bria, right? The Chachamim made a calculation of what you need in terms of a strong beam. Kedei lekabel oriach. It's got to be able to hold a half brick. V'lav hachi, and if it's not like that, shadei zika, the wind's going to come and blow it away eventually. It's not choshev enough to be valid. So what's the diff? So how you could say the same thing by the sukkah. Mitkar. The answer is v'zimnon de mishtakel mixas oivei schach. A guy by himself is not going to recognize it. And therefore maybe the schach will be removed when some wind will come, or some tall guy will be banging his big hat against the bottom and remove the schach. Hanichel tochav, the part that goes into the below the 20. The kaima kulam and you're going to have a remaining sukkah with schach above 20, which would be devastating. Okay, on the other hand, when it comes to a mavi mitkradadi, shim tirkav tachtoina, if the bottom starts wasting away, shel kurav the beam, v'tamud kula l'mayla mi'esrim amma, and now the entire beam is above 20, mitkanale. Somebody's going to recognize and say, hey, we got to get the Eruv crew here and fix it. Okay, you got to call Steve Darrison, he'll get the truck, and things will be done. But l'maisa by sukkah, that's not going to happen. Ela ema. So now we're going the other way. So why are you going to say sukkah is kosher? Because of the fact that you say at the end of the day you have more shade. The rowan who you view it as if you view it as if everything's on the bottom. Who the kamino velo shaklina minei midi. You don't remove the schach. You view the schach as still there. It's just still there. Essentially beginning with the bottom, and therefore it's sort of like one big entity, and therefore you make it kosher. Why can't we view the bottom part of the mavui with the beam as if they were filled with metal rods, heavy? Dinamic klishi lo shadalu. Zika. Okay, that even if it was weak, and if it was thin, even if it was very thin, the wind would not carry metal rods anywhere. The loy midi shakaltamine elron who the kamrinot, right? Because you by using your imagination and view them as metal, the wind will not bother you. So that just like you're able to use your imagination for the sukkah, you should be able to use your imagination for the mavui. And the answer is there's a difference between one and the other. And this is the exact opposite version of the version A that we just had. So my Haviyallah. Okay, so now that we have version A and we have version B, Michael wants to know, so what's the bottom line? So how do we end with all this confusion in terms of which direction we're going in? Which one's kosher, which one's apostle? So my Haviyallah, bottom line, Rabbi Avrohom Stulberger is apostle. So Rabbi Avrohom says, I hold they're both no good. Rav Amazev is a kosher. Rav says they're both good, neither of the earlier versions. It's either all or nothing. They're both either no good or they're both good. And that's it. And that's how we end this particular sugya. No Rashi, so we're good to go. Fine. So now let's turn to Amud Beis and proceed. So Halal Sukkah Tanan. Halal Movi Tanan. So when we talk about the the height of the mavli and the height of the schach, we are talking about, and it's got to be the beam cannot be above 20. What we need is the airspace. What's valid is an airspace of 20. So you're allowed to have the schach and the beam come exactly to that height of 20. So if you have an opening of 20, that's okay. It can't be above 20. Let's see Rashi. Chal sukkah tanan esrim amish shehiskru. Okay, shehiskru bein b'mavi bein b'sukkah. When we talk about 20 amish being the line of demarcation, both for a mavi and for a sukkah, chalala kaima. It's referring to the airspace, to the opening. Okay, so that's okay. But you can't have more airspace than 20. So you don't have to have the beam and the schach actually entering into the 20 amma range. If you had an exact distance thing and you have exactly, it rests exactly 20 ammas, so your airspace is exactly 20, that would be okay. And that goes for both the sukkah and for the mavi. Amar Papa Rava Tanya Messiah. I will now bring you a brisa that will support exactly what you just said. Rava, because it says Mavi shegavoyim eshamama yosim epischa shulam yimayit. If the mavi was more than 20, referring to the beam, if it was more than 20, you got to lower it. Okay, less than and comparing it to the pischa shel. This is what got Rav into trouble. This brisa, because this brisa was the one that indicated to Rav that the heichel is the source of this whole limud. Okay, so one more time. Okay, the heichel gufa. Now, so let's compare to the heichel. What was the heichel's scenario? The heichel gufa chalaloi esrim, and the heichel itself, the opening was 20. So you see that based on the heichel, you had the roof or the crossbeam coming exactly to that 20 amma distance. So that tells me that the airspace of 20 is legit. Okay, misfas chaf eisvei. So let's keep going. No Rashi's. Eisvei Rav Shimi barav Ashi Rav Papa. So Rav Shimi barashi asked a question to Rav Papa. Keitzad hayos from this brisa. Keitzad hayosa. So what would they do? Meniach kur misfas esrim ulamata. Okay, so this is referring to a beam, okay, by a mavli. So what should you do to make the beam, properly situated in your mavli? Meniach kora misfas esrim ulamata. Sounds like you need to put the beam from the 20 below. So that word ulamata seems to be against what we just said. Sounds like the airspace can't be 20. It sounds like it has to be less than 20. The beam's got to go downward from that 20 demarcation line. So it seems to say you have to have less airspace than 20. So ema ulamayla, all you got to do is change the word and say it's got to go 20 above instead of 20 and below. Just nice little editing, and that does it. The only trouble is I volamata katani, but it doesn't say lamayla. It says lamata. It's nice if you can just change a word, but it's not so easy to do. The brisa says ulamata katani. So the answer is hakamash malon. The lamata kilamayla. It's telling you that the bottom is like the top. My lamayla chalola esrim, just like meaning to say, in other words, ulamata, ulamata katani, hakamash malon, the lamata kilamayla. There's a message here in using the word ulamata, that the minimum height is the same as the maximum height. Maila chalola esrim, aflamata chalola asora. So just like in the airspace on top, the shear is 20 amas, so you can have 20 amas. So too, when it comes to the minimum shear, right, you have to have 10 tfachim of airspace. You can't have the korah below 10 tfachim. Just like you can't have the same with the sukkah. Sukkah below 10 tfachim is not a valid sukkah. So the word ulamata is not telling you about, seems like that's the way you have to learn pshat. It's not telling you that the beam has to come downward into the sukkah or into the mavi, I should say, but rather it's saying ulamata means the same rules are ulamata. Just like the 20 airspace applies to the top, okay, it also applies to the bottom. Okay, let's take a look at Rashi, meaning to the minimum shear. Misvas chaf ulamata, mashma she'oivei akora b'tochaf. Right, that word ulamata seems to be saying that when you go, where the place that you put the korah needs to be going from 20 below downwards into the 20 airspace. It doesn't sound like you can have an airspace of 20. So says the Gemara, no, you have wrong shot. What it means to say is hokamashmal and the shir shasacham lamata miyutfachim achalolkoi. It's teaching you, that word is teaching you that the shear that the Rabbanan gave in the minimum shear of a mavi also has the same rules as the maximum shear. It's going on the airspace. Kishir amru b'chof l'mayla, just like they gave in the rules of engagement in the height of a mavli, those same rules of engagement apply in the minimum height of a mavli. V'achi kama masis, and this is how you read that brisa. Meniachas kura misvas chof ulamayla. You put the beam from the edge of 20, exactly at that 20 marker upwards. That's fine, like as we just said, as long as the airspace is 20 is fine. V'chein lamata. And that's, you have to sort of add that word v'chein, even though it's not really there, but maybe whatever that's how you have to read it. And so too it would be if you're dealing with a minimum shear. In balas also namuch, if you make it low, you want to make a mavli, and you want to rectify it on a very low level. You don't want to put the beam very high. You don't have the equipment for that. You want to put it low. How low can you put the beam, and still make it valid? In Bala Soisi Namuch Menicham Misfas Asar Tfachim Ulamayla. You put at the edge of 10 tfachim, okay, upwards. Meaning what? If it's less than 10, it's not a mavli. You need the airspace of 10. So that's the key point. But whether it be a 20 amma height situation or a 10 tefach height situation, you need the airspace to be 10 or the airspace to be 20, not more and not less. Okay, let's proceed. Amar Abaya Mishmei.
Well, actually, it has to be more than 10 and less than 20.
No, 10 is exactly okay. In other words, Chalala Esrim, you can have an airspace of 20, so you can't go higher than 20 and get less than 10. Right, but 10 exactly would be good. That would be fine. You need an airspace of 10. Right, in other words, in the bottom, you need an airspace of 10. When it comes to that, you're allowed to have an airspace of 20. So you're right. I mean, there's a little of different focus, but at the end of the day, that airspace is valid, and you can't have less of an airspace of 10 or more of an airspace of 20. Okay. So Amar by Mishmei Rav Nachman, Amas Sukkah v'Amas Mavli ba'Amabas Chamisha. Okay, when you're talking about the Amas of a Sukkah and the Amar of a Mavli of the height, what are you talking about? How high can you go? A 5 tefach Amma. There are two different Amas that is mentioned in the Gemara. We have 5 tefach Amas and we have 6 tefach Amas. The conventional was a 6 tefach Amma, but if you go with the height, so if you limit it to a 5 tefach Amma, is that a chumrah or is that a kula? If you say the maximum is 20 Amas, if you say it's a 5 tefach Amma, that's a chumrah. Being machmir, you can't go, right? Because let's say conventional wisdom is an amma is 1.5 feet. So conventional wisdom would be it's 30 feet. Your sukkah could be 30 feet. Your schach could be 30 feet off the ground. If you hold it to 5 tefach amma, that gives you got to go down. You're maybe down to 28 feet. You don't have the same 30-foot realm. Okay. However, when it comes to klayim, okay, ba'ama ba'shisha. When it comes to klayim, where amas are measured, about this, then you have a 6 amma rule. Okay, he says. Let's see any Rashis here. Amos mavi v'amos sukkah. The rules of an amma when it comes to a mavi and a sukkah. Amos shuskru b'mavi v'sukkah b'amos katanos. Shir. They calculated in smaller amos. The amos shuskru b'klayim. And the amos that are mentioned in the rules of klayim, ba'amos gedolo shiru. Okay, l'kama farish haininu. And then later on we're going to explain what exactly are we referring to here. Rav Nachman, mida kamar hacha ketanos v'hacha gedolo, shma mina hacha chumra v'hacha chumra. So you see that basically what he's doing is he's going l'chumra in both. di lo l'chumra. Because if it wasn't an issue of just being machmir, how do you go both directions? So the only way to explain what Rav Nachman is saying to us, there's no consistent shir. There's no shir. No, we don't tell you anything. So you got to say that the general rule is, we'll see more tomorrow, that whenever you have an amma, you see which direction would be machmir. In the machmir direction is where you have to go. Sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger. Okay, shkoyach.